What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. We're here today, finally, at long last. The Pathfinder 2nd Edition Paladin is upon us. This is one of my favorite classes in Pathfinder, one of my favorite classes to dip in Pathfinder, and as yesterday's blog says, quite a lot. It's also the most contentious class in Pathfinder, so this should be good. If you're liking what you're seeing, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps out a lot. Before we get down to that though, real quick, this episode of your Pathfinder 2nd Edition preview content was brought to you in part by Josh King. Thank you for your time and support. Thank you for GMing for a couple of Paladins of mine in the past. It was a whole lot of fun. Now, let's see what 2nd Edition's gonna do with them, shall we? Alright, so for those of us who might have missed the bus on what the Paladin in Pathfinder, the Paladin in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 was, it was the class that had to be lawful good, the crusader of justice, the slayer of demons, the protector of the weak, who also got his or her charisma to saves beginning at 2nd level, and this is why most of my games I will double dip Paladin. They also could get a mount, and thus through archetypes such as the Shining Knight made wonderful Uberchargers. Chosen One archetype granted you a familiar. But one thing that never really changed a whole lot, with the exception of a couple of archetypes, was the fact that in Pathfinder 1st Edition, the Paladin had to be lawful good. In addition to the code of conduct passed down by that Paladin's deity, that Paladin had their own code of conduct, and if they deviated from it, they would lose their paladinhood. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, at least for now, it looks like that ship is going to sail on. Even amongst the staff at Paizo, there's a lot of contention about, should a paladin be lawful good? A paladin should be any alignment. They should stick to lawful good, chaotic good, lawful evil, chaotic evil. But the one thing that everybody agrees on at Paizo is that, quote, whatever alignments paladins have, they should have an array of abilities deeply tied to that alignment. Since that was the aspect of the Paladin that everyone agreed upon, that's what we wanted to make sure we got right in the playtest. But given the limited space for the playtest, we chose to focus on getting that aspect fine-tuned for one alignment, so in this book we're presenting only lawful good Paladins. Paizo notes that that means it's not the end of the anti-paladin or the tyrant, an anti-paladin archetype that was lawful evil, or that the door is closed to other sorts of paladins down the road, and that there will be a survey on the matter. Again though, the first thing we're doing is we're having lawful good paladins only, getting that foundation set up, so if they choose to build upon it, the base will be there. I can understand why Paizo made that move for sure. The blog has been out for about 2 hours, and already I've seen a lot of my friends, I won't say at each other's throats because we're civil, gentlemanly-like people, but there's been a lot of debate about it because the Paladin is one of the most debated classes in Pathfinder, 100% for that lawful good only aspect. Me personally, I have my own beliefs about Paladins, and I'll share them at the end of the video. For now, let's talk about what they do in 2nd Edition. The first thing we see is the code of conduct. Quote, Paladins are divine champions of a deity. You must be lawful good and worship a deity that allows lawful good clerics. Remember, deities are getting a huge overhaul in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so for all we know, someone like Desna at Chaotic Good might allow paladins, or even somebody like Lawful Evil, Chaotic Evil. It's a brave new world for sure. Actions fundamentally opposed to your deity's alignment or ideals are anathema to your faith. A few examples that would be considered anathema appear in each deity's entry, like we talked about when we talked about the clerics. But again, what is and is not anathema is 100% between the player and the GM. In addition, paladins will have a code set in stone in the playtest. These tenets are listed in the order of importance. If a situation places two tenets in conflict, you aren't in a no-win situation like you would be in 1st Edition sometimes. Instead, follow the most important tenet. Though, again, I imagine this is 100% between that particular player and that particular player's game master. Anyway, the Paladin's Code. You must never willingly commit an evil act, such as murder, torture, or casting an evil spell. You must not take actions that you know will harm an innocent, or through inaction, cause an innocent to come to immediate harm when you knew your action could reasonably prevent it. This tenet does not force you to take an action against possible harm to innocents or to sacrifice your life and further potential in an attempt to protect an innocent. You must act with honor, never cheating, lying, or taking advantage of your foes. You must respect the lawful authority of the legitimate ruler or leadership in whichever land you may be, following their laws unless they violate a higher tenet. Now, I've broken that one before in the past, playing a paladin who present day is neutral good and worships Daikitsu, hanging out in the inner sea and doing things that Iyomide wasn't cool with, and now that's officially become canon. Tread lightly, kids. If a paladin strays from lawful good, performs acts anathema to the deity, or violates their code of conduct, they lose their spell point pool and righteous ally class feature until they demonstrate their repentance by conducting an atone ritual. But you keep any other paladin abilities that don't require class features, so like your weapon proficiencies. The big point to be made here is one thing is being removed from the paladin tenets from 1st edition. Paladins can use poison. Quote, while there are certainly dishonorable ways to use poison, poisoning a weapon and using it in an honorable combat that allows enhanced weaponry doesn't seem much different than lighting the weapon on fire. However, by ordering the tenets and allowing the paladin to prioritize the most important tenets in the event of conflict, we've cut down on the no-win situations. So yeah, that's huge. I always thought that poison was much like the blog is saying, the flaming enchantment, the Vorpal enchantment, the keen enchantment. It's just another tool, right? There's a fine line between using poison to torture somebody and using poison to end a fight quicker to give yourself an advantage. Alchemy's gonna be a big deal in Pathfinder 2nd edition, and that means poison will also be a bigger deal. It's only fair the paladin has access to it, especially if he's going up against a bunch of drow who undoubtedly are going to try to use poison against him. Next up, we have oaths. Quote, oaths allow you to play around with the tenets of your code while also gaining mechanical advantages, my favorite kind of advantage. For instance, the Fiends Bane oath allows you to dish out near constant retribution against fiends and eventually block their dimensional travel with an anchoring aura. The oaths in Pathfinder 2nd edition will be feats. It's not an oath-bound paladin, it's not that archetype. We just choose them as class feats, which is great if we all get access to a thing without having to commit to a certain archetype. There's more customization. There's more stuff we can do with our paladins. I'm super down. Next up, we've got a wide list of paladin features. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, the paladin is the class that gains the highest heavy armor proficiency, eventually reaching legendary proficiency in armor and master proficiency in weapons, as opposed to the fighter who gets master armor but legendary weapons. At first level, we also receive a reaction known as Retributive Strike. This allows you to counterattack and enfeeble any foe that hits one of your allies, which isn't bad. That's more damage thrown at a given guy who might not provoke an attack of opportunity. Yeah, by all means, let's do it. Paladins also will be seeing Lay on Hands come back to them. It's a single action healing spell that not only heals the target, but raises their AC for a round. And so not only do the rich get richer, they also get more hit points. I can dig it. The next feature the blog highlights at 19th level is Hero's Defiance. It lets you keep standing when you fall to 0 hit points, gives you a big boost of hit points, and doesn't even use up your reaction, it's just a thing. It kind of reminds me of Ferocity, and Ferocity is one of my favorite universal monster rules, the reason I've come to really love playing an orc. On the subject of that, if you guys are into Rise of the Rune Lords for Pathfinder 1st edition, you can follow this card right up here to watch the Inn of Planar Crossroads run through Rise of the Rune Lords. Yours truly joins them with an orc hunter around session 30. Regardless, if I can have that without having to take a trait or do a bunch of jumps, sure, that sounds great. The Paladin will also receive a bunch of fun smite-related boosts, including the Righteous Ally class feature, 3rd level ability that lets you house a Holy Spirit in a weapon or a steed, much like before, but also in a shield, like the Sacred Shield, that archetype that puts Shield Other on all your friends, so they're taking half damage, you're taking half damage, and then we all play a bunch of Sacred Shields, and the math gets really weird, and the GM gets really mad and walks away, never to be seen again. And that's really wonderful to see as a staple in Pathfinder 2nd edition, but I digress. Let's talk about those Righteous Ally options. First off, we see at level 8, we get the Feats Second Ally. It lets you gain a second Righteous Ally. There's also a variety of auras that we'll be seeing, from everyone's favorite Aura of Courage, which we're receiving at 4th level, which in 2nd edition will reduce the frightened condition for you and your allies, At level 14, we'll see Aura of Righteousness, which gives you and your allies resistance to evil damage. You imagine that's like the Unholy weapon enchant being thrown at your face? Yeah, now we can resist it a little bit. We'll also be receiving Mercy Feats in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which alter lay on hands. Feats that improve or alter your lay on hands include Mercy Feats, which allow you to remove harmful conditions and afflictions with lay on hands, up to and including death itself with ultimate mercy. Yeah, it's the paladin who's rezzing the party now, not just the cleric. Did your friend go down dead? High five his body, we're good. One big takeaway for this blog is we are seeing that Divine Grace, the reason I double dip paladins in a lot of my builds, because in 1st edition that's 2 levels of paladin for your charisma modifier to all 3 of your saves. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, that is now a reaction. I have to say it's a little disheartening because again, I would double dip paladin all the time because it's really strong in 1st edition to do so, which leads to further contention about why the paladin has to be lawful good so your barbarian can't do it, and on and on and on. Regardless, also, as a GM, I understand the need to nerf Divine Grace to make it work a little more like Charmed Life for the Swashbuckler, because Paladins in 1st edition are super powerful, and leveling out the playing field makes it a little easier to kill a party that's all dipped Paladin. I speak from experience. Last, we see that the Paladin can get Attack of Opportunity at level 6. However, if I have Retributive Strike right out the gate and can just hit the guy that hit my friends, I think that's almost stronger. Again, it comes down to situations, and it comes down to how easily we can manipulate reactions and or get more of them. Last but not least, we are seeing the return of litanies in Pathfinder 2nd edition. For those of us who don't know, the litanies in Pathfinder 1st edition were spells, and they were really powerful spells. You would cast them, the bad guy, and this is probably the first time I've said bad guy and been accurate in terms of at least the alignment chart, would make a save. If he failed the save, good things happen for the party, bad things happen for him. A favorite of mine is Litany of Righteousness that would just flat double the damage. Super good. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, litanies are single action verbal casting spells that last 1 round and create various effects. Litany of Righteousness will be making a return, making an enemy weak to your allies' attacks, and Litany against Sloth slows down an enemy, costing it reactions and potentially, as in if it critically fails I imagine, actions as well. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, the Litany against Sloth now specifically works better against a Dretch, aka a Sloth demon. That flavor is real good, I really like it, and it means that the Paladin can essentially sideboard against encounters, not unlike the Wizard can. Mechanically speaking, if you cast Litany against Sloth against a Sloth demon, the Sloth demon treats his outcome of the save as if it were 1 degree worse. So the Dretch can never critically succeed that save. Super good. Again, it's wizard level sideboard tech. If you know what you're fighting, there it is. So before we close this one out here, I'm going to put my 2 cents forward, my thoughts about the Paladins in 1st edition. Take it with a grain of salt, I suppose, because we haven't seen exactly how the playtest Paladin's going to run, but it's been a long time in my games and at my tables that we house rule Paladins away from lawful good. That was something I was hoping to see. I think a lot of tables do this. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has done this. Regardless, for the record, this is how I feel about Paladins, and really anti-Paladins as well, and my thoughts on how they should work in 2nd edition. All Paladins are non-evil. All anti-Paladins are non-good. A Paladin always smites evil. An anti-Paladin always smites good. You must worship a deity that allows clerics of your alignment. If the Paladin performs acts that are anathema to their deity, strays from an alignment allowed by that deity, or violates their code of conduct, which is probably something you work out between you and the GM. They lose their spell point, they lose their righteous ally until they atone, which is pretty much the same thing we saw at the beginning of the blog. But what do you guys think about Paladins? Are Paladins lawful good? Should we loosen up a little bit on Paladin alignments? And do you plan on playing a Paladin in Pathfinder 2nd edition? Because if you are, hey, we're running Doomsday Dawn right here on Black Dragon Gaming, which I am super stoked for, and if you'd like to learn more about it, follow this card right up here. And for all you min-maxers out there, if you'd like one more chance to double dip Paladin and get your charisma to saves, we're holding a tournament, and the deadline to enter that tournament is tomorrow. 16 lucky subscribers will participate in a tournament where Paladins would be sweet for a little blood sport in the name of Paizo Productions. If you'd like to learn more about that, follow this card right up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, be sure to like and subscribe. The next episode of your Pathfinder 2nd Edition preview content drops this Saturday.